Are career coaches worth the money? We're going to be talking about that today with some awesome folks who coach PhDs in various spaces, career, business, becoming an editor, finding career clarity, academic exit. You're going to find us all together in this same conversation today. And we're going to be talking about whether career coaches are worth the money. Obviously, here we think they are, but we're going to give you the reasons why they are. If you're a PhD who's skeptical, who's struggling in your job search and thinking about a coach, this is a video that's going to help you decide whether a coach is worth the money and in what situations it is versus in, because it's not always. So, Jen, I'm going to ask you to kick us off on this. Why is working with a career coach worth the money, or when is it worth it?
Dang, you are putting me on the spot, Tori. Okay. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind for me is my own situation years ago when I was flailing. This is how I always tell the story, right? Like I earned my PhD. It was a few months later. I had the diploma so it's somewhere in my house now. And I was flailing and s- it, and the internet provided me with this opportunity to have a conversation with a career coach, and it just fucking blew my mind. Sorry, I shouldn't be talking that way, but it was for me personally, because I had the experience of working with a coach, and this is somebody who marketed herself and still does. Hillary Hutchinson, hello, awesome person, works with unhappy academics, folks transitioning into different kinds of careers. Like working with her was just totally life changing. And like, I mean that, like, really. And y- yeah, so I feel like there is, I don't even know, like, it's not even about time. Like, how long would it have taken me to get like where I wanted to go with out here? Like, I can't even like imagine that that would have even been possible. Like, it just, anyways, for me, like, oh my God, take all my money. No, don't take all my money, but you know what I mean? That's not a very good answer, but just for my own personal experience, I'm like, heck yeah. I mean, yeah, okay. All right, Tori, give some structure to this rambles here.
I'll come back with the structure. Well, and so it sounds like for you, you discovered a career coach on the internet, had a little experience of it, and then were like mind blown. And so for you, both figuring out that this thing existed, career coaching, and then experiencing it, it was like, whoa, like where was this? That's what I'm hearing from your comments. I don't know if that resonates.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just in the way that she coaches, it was such a different way of interacting with a person that I was ever used to in my entire life, and certainly not in an academic context. So I say that in a way like I feel like you maybe don't even you can't even like put it in a box in your brain like what this even would be like because it's not somebody giving you advice or telling you what to do necessarily. I mean, it can be depending on the person, but like it's so like yes, worth it.
Paulina, your thoughts on coaching, right? What are your beliefs on what coaching was, having an experience of it, however you
I didn't even know that coaching existed when I was thinking about leaving academia. And I think something you said, Jen, I think hit the nail on the head where like you have the internet and you can Google how to leave academia and you get this tsunami of information. But then it's like, how do you even begin to sort through that, right? Like we have AI and okay, I go to Perplexity to ask these questions, but um it's still, I think when you're talking about a life change of this magnitude, it is so hard to navigate these decisions because it's not just about your career, it's about your family and where you want to live and how much money you're going to make and all of that stuff. And the internet and AI are never going to give you what another human being with empathy and experience can give you. And so, yeah, you've got all the information at your fingertips, but it's going to be torture to try to go through it by yourself.
And I know, Tori, both of you I know are going to agree with me on this, but really the whole point of working with a coach is so that you do the things that, right, you actually do the things, not because they're like, beautiful in terms of advice for like some person that isn't you, but because you figured out together what it is the thing that you need to be doing to move yourself forward, and then you actually do it because it comes from like your real intrinsic motivation. And that's really the genius of this process is that you actually do things. Like it's really, yeah, get this idea of like, I'm going to hire an expert. Like maybe that person is also an expert. Really, it's about you doing things.
Well, and it's interesting because I think the intrinsic motivation, right, the sort of navigating that complexity that Paulina mentioned, that's easier to do with someone who is there navigating with you, who's been through this process a ton of times. I would also say there's an element of extrinsic because, if you're just doing this by yourself, you haven't put any money down. And there's a funny psychological thing that like when we pay something, we actually then commit to it more. Putting money towards it is a way of saying like, I'm doing this. I'm actually doing this. And it might not be a huge amount of money, right? Something above zero. Basically says like, now I have like put stake in this. I have put some of my financial stake in saying I'm making this happen. And so there's a funny thing both about the free resources of the AI, et cetera. But I'd say even if you're taking sort of free mentorship chats from PhDs who have made the move out, which are great, you should be doing them. But even if it's free, there's a sort of non-committal energy to that, that when you choose to pay to work with a coach, not talking free friend coaching, you're committing yourself and saying, this matters to me. I'm putting my money where my mouth is and saying I'm really doing this. And so it makes it real in a way that I don't think happens when it's just in free, because when it's in free, it can sort of be a maybe for a long time. And there is a tendency when we pay for something to then actually say, like, no, I'm doing this. I don't know if you folks have seen that, but for me, at least, I see when I myself put money towards something, when I see clients put money towards something, it's a statement what matters to us. And we then tend to fulfill that prophecy that we have set out by spending money on.
Yeah, I think it's a sign that you're making the commitment to yourself. And I when you bring up money, I sort of have a different view because as a kid who grew up poor with a single mom, I was always saving. I was always like, I'm going to DIY literally everything. I am not going to pay anyone for anything. I will spend hours searching on the internet for the answer and I will create my spreadsheets and I will find the answer myself because I have to save money to keep myself safe. And that's how I approached everything. And I remember, well, the students in my program know this story, but I didn't want to buy my domain name for my business until like it had been a year and I was still acadiaediting.wordpress.com. And my husband looked at me one day and he's like, Paulina, it is $12 a year. Buy the domain name, But like it took until I had a business that was already in play before I was willing to spend money on myself. And because it felt like such a luxury. And I just want to say for anybody who feels that kind of feeling that hesitant about spending money, you have to look at the value of what a coach can bring because I mean, I would argue it's priceless because you're going to get so much out of that relationship with a good coach. And it's worth it to invest in yourself and your future because it's going to get you to your goal so much faster. And it's going to be so much more enjoyable to work with somebody who understands you and can help guide you.
I mean, it brings up for me, I mean, thanks for saying all of that. It's something I feel like it's related is this idea of like, we're not here to tell you, like, just throw your money away. Like, there's a reason why there's three of us here, right? And of course, there's so many more folks like us out there. Like, invest in yourself with somebody that you trust, that you like, you want to hang out with. You don't think is a jerk, right? That rules on me completely, anyways. And anyway, yeah, just to say like, yeah, we're not like evil capitalists here. Like we want like, buy the good genes, right? Like like find the right fit. And related to something we were just talking about, you can there's I mean there are free resources out there, but I think making the decision that you are open to working with a coach or we're open to joining a program, right? If that's the way the coach is, working with folks, that you're open to being in community with others in this more structured way, like even that choice that you're making, that's awesome, right? And then you can go and research your options and possibilities and think, okay, what really is going to help me, like me, not that other person. Anyways, I'm rambling. Yeah, just that first, like, yeah, I'm open to doing this, I think is a big step.
And I'll build on that thing you mentioned about the program. You know, part of the reason I run my program as a group program for PhDs is because not just is job searching on your own isolating, right? And okay, if you have a one-on-one coach, they're a guide, they're there with you. But having other job seekers, you know, there are data, there's this book, Never Search Alone, that actually says like job searching alone is hard. Here's data showing that when people search in groups, they find jobs faster, right? And then so it's basically accelerating the process. And so in my program, I do part coaching, part mentoring, but in groups because I found that there is just a huge value add to folks being with other people who are searching for a job, sharing insights, sharing doubts and struggles that come up. And so not just a coach, but like a coaching program, you then have this envelope with other people who are saying, hey, this is hard for me. It's surprisingly powerful and an accelerant to a search that otherwise, I mean, I've run into PhDs who can search for like 2 to 3 years, especially in this market. My median right now with clients is 7 months, used to be 6, but this market is slow, right? But like 7 months instead of 3 years, that's a huge number of incremental earnings and just life back that you get when you're searching faster versus having that sort of inefficient search span on for 2 to 3 years.
I also think there's something to be said about community because there's so much shame in academia with this idea of leaving. And I've noticed when people come into my program to learn to start an academic business, they are embarrassed and they feel guilty and they carry this weight of this shame of, oh, I'm a failure or I'm thinking of quitting. They feel like they're betraying people. And when they come into a space where now we have over 75 people who have joined this program, they see that they're not alone and that there's so many people who are experiencing the same misery that they have, and to not to use this word lightly, but trauma of what is happening to them and how people are treating them, and to just to know that you're in that space and you're not alone and other people are, you're sharing your wins with them. I think that also makes coaching and a program like that so worth it.
I mean, to bring it back to the story I shared at the beginning, the very first time I had a conversation with a woman that Hillary, who I hired to work to be to coach me. I mean, I'm not quoting her exactly because this was like more than 10 years ago, but it was like, oh, you're right on track. Welcome to exactly where you should be. I was like, oh my God. Wow. Dang. Woo. Right? Like speaking of that shame and that embarrassment, like I was like kind of half joking, mostly not joking, going around telling people like, yeah, I'm a loser with a PhD. Like that, right? But she was like, no, hey, you're right where you are. Great. Let's go from here. Huge.
Well, and there's something really powerful there about a trained coach who can help folks feel seen, help folks discover parts of themselves that, again, a well-meaning mentor will give advice, will give their own experience. But when you're actually trained as a coach, when you've spent hours coaching, there's that way of showing up for folks that makes them feel whole, feel seen, feel excited, feel optimistic. And again, if you haven't ever experienced it, if you've never been part of coaching anything, that little snippet that Jen was talking about at the top of this call, right? That oh wow, I can I can experience this. I can experience someone who believes in me and tells me that it's okay to be where I am. That coming out of the toxicity of academia is a huge gift. And
Can I
so the
just
opportunity for folks to do that is huge. Go ahead.
I just want to make a side note. I figure we need to do a whole other video that talks about the difference between like coaching, like one-on-one coaching and joining a program or doing this community with people. Like I think that's we
Well, and
let's not muddy things here.
also the difference between coaching and advising and coaching and
Yeah.
like that's a separate video. But actually for this one, I think I'm going to wrap us because I think we've got some good comments here for folks to be able to consider coaching, understand a little bit more of what it's about. For those who are interested in following up and exploring programs, you've got several folks here who help PhDs like yourself, right? So go check out Jen's Career Clarity Program from PhD to Life. Go check out her resources if you haven't already. Paulina runs Acadia Editing. She runs Becoming an Academic Editor. If you want to run that type of business, she's the person to learn from. And I hopefully, if you're watching this on my channel, you know that I provide resources for PhDs looking to exit academia as well, specifically for social scientists. And so hopefully you found something here today that gives you a sense of possibility and hope. Feel free to reach out to any of us if you want to follow that up further. Thanks, Paulina and Jen, for a great conversation.